We are joined now by Frank Isola. He is at the Frank Isola on Twitter. You can see him on ESPN. You can listen to him at Sirius XM. Frank, just when we think that maybe the NBA is starting to put behind all of the off-court controversy, just throw it into the rear view, maybe just a little bit. Mark Cuban decides not to play the national anthem. Then the NBA claps back and says, no, you will play the national anthem. How much of a mess is this for the NBA?
I can only imagine what must have gone on at the league office in Manhattan when this story first broke. Obviously, they hadn't been playing, I guess, their first 13 games at home. No one was really picking up on it. They don't have fans in the arena. And this obviously became a big issue on Wednesday. And I can only imagine that, you must have other owners who are calling up. And I think the amount of blowback that the league was getting, and, it's going to open up this whole now debate about the anthem, whether or not it should be played again. Does the NBA really want to be the first league to go down this road after what had happened over the past couple of months with their relationship with China? So Mark Cuban coming out and saying what he said, and then the league finding out about this and it becoming a big story. I think the last thing Adam Silver needed right now was a political controversy, especially since there's been a lot of blowback that the league has been getting on the All-Star game, and it's coming from the players.
Yeah.
No less. But I think he's already dealing with that. I think the last thing he wanted to deal with was this whole thing with the anthem.
So how do you solve it? Because here's what I started off the show talking about. I said, look, it used to be there were certain American cultural institutions that even if you were of a different persuasion politically or a different race, religion, whatever it was, you showed respect for larger institutions, right? And to me, the national anthem, whether you agree or disagree with playing it, was one of those moments, right? It was pretty much everybody in a stadium, everybody in an arena would stand. And the way that I think about it all the time is we're going to spend a minute and a half or 2 minutes or whatever the heck it is to reflect upon the fact that we are living in a country that is so free that we can come and spend our entertainment time watching professional athletics or college athletics. And you can certainly argue that is a political statement in some way, but I don't think it really is connected to any particular party or any particular ideology. You can disagree with it, think it's a little bit silly, maybe a little bit hokey, but up until Colin Kaepernick, there wasn't really very much controversy surrounding the national anthem at all, regardless of what your politics were. When Kaepernick made his decision, the national anthem got disrupted, just like so many other large institutions have been disrupted in American life over the past several years. And I think what Mark Cuban was trying to do was just avoid the discussion completely by eliminating the national anthem from his sporting events. And it's easier to do when there's not very many fans in the stands, or I don't know, are there any at all in Dallas? I don't even know. I haven't watched the Mavs play a basketball game this year. And to be fair, it's not because of any particular political statement by me. It's just when football season is going on, I don't pay attention very much to basketball. So I'm not that aware of it. What do you think in general about this situation?
It's interesting. If you go back to the summer when the MLS started up, they were down in Orlando in a bubble. They decided, because fans aren't going to be there, they decided not to play the anthem. And their thing was, when we go back to stadiums and we have fans, we'll play the anthem. And that's what they decided to do. It's a complicated issue because I think with the whole Kaepernick situation, I think the message was getting lost on maybe what he was trying to draw attention to. And instead, I think a lot of people took it as you're being disrespectful to the flag, disrespectful to the anthem. And I understand the people, and I could certainly appreciate and respect their opinion, who have issues with the lyrics. I think a lot of African-American people in this country have major issues with the lyrics. If you wanted to change the song to God Bless America, maybe that's something everyone would compromise on. But I would also,
let me sorry to cut you off there.
Yeah.
My thing on cancel culture in general is you can't make people happy, because if you change the lyrics to God Bless America, people would decide God Bless America had some offensive lineage at some point in time. Like, history is what it is. It's impossible to, make everything that has existed historically sanitized by the standards of people who are in 2021.
Yeah. Well, I would also say this. What I found kind of interesting was that during the week of the Super Bowl, it became a really big story. And I think they probably did a story on it. Certainly things were written about it. I think they probably did a story on Super Bowl Sunday, was 30 years ago when Whitney Houston sang the national anthem in Tampa, a game between the Giants and the Buffalo Bills, and that was at a time during the Gulf War, and how a lot of people think that was the greatest ever rendition of the national anthem. So that's how much of a fabric it's been a part of our sports. And I don't have a problem with it being played. When it's played, I stand and I put my hand over my heart. You can do whatever you want. I'm not going to judge you. Don't judge me on what I'm doing during the anthem. And I also think for a lot of people that will say, well, they don't do it in other countries. Since when do we now worry about what they do in other countries? If you wanted to say we're going to eliminate it, we're only going to play for international sporting events or big games, we're going to play it before the Super Bowl in the NBA. I just think that on what happened over the past 48 hours at the NBA, I think that was the case of the league saying maybe one day this will be the case in this country where the anthem isn't being played before the games. We are not going to be the first ones. We're not going to be the crash test dummy on this one. We're not going to do it. We'll let some other league be the first. We're not going to be that league.
Also, I think it's the timing of when you decided to do it, because when there's a controversy around the anthem, it seems intensely political to decide to pull the anthem, right? As opposed to if this were 10 years ago, let's say, and it's randomly 2010 or whatever it is, and there's no great political controversy of the moment, and a league decided, hey, you know what, we're thinking about taking it away, I think it wouldn't have been as emotionally fraught. Does that make sense? Because since Kaepernick, it has turned into an emotional flashpoint in a way that for much of American history, I don't really think it was, unless it was a moment of coming together. As you mentioned, Whitney Houston in times of war, post 9/11, I thought the anthem brought on additional moments of patriotism, I would say, in a general sense. And so, and look, I'm one of the guys out there who would say we move in cyclical directions. And what I mean by that is, remember, it wasn't that long ago that Bill Maher lost his job on ABC because he was not being sufficiently condemnatory of terrorists, right? I think he said, if I remember correctly, basically, you can call terrorists a lot of things, and I'm paraphrasing, so I'm not.
Don't call them cowards.
Don't call them cowards, because they're willing to give up their life for whatever they believe in, and in general, that's the exact opposite of cowardice, right? Whether you agree or disagree with that perspective, it certainly is, to me, a perspective that someone could say, and they shouldn't be canceled for it, right? And I'm against cancel culture in general. But we now have spun, it's 20 years later, and we've now spun in the different direction where you're now being canceled if you're too patriotic, right? Not patriotic enough, right? Bill Maher was not patriotic enough. And now we're canceling people if you're too patriotic, right? Like, oh, you like America too much now. You're not willing to embrace all of the ills that this country has propagated over time, and therefore you should be canceled, right? That's where we're going. Cancel culture, it evolves, and it's kind of fascinating and disappointing to see, but it's never the province of any one particular region or people or party or anything else. It's basically, I hate to sound like Matthew McConaughey, but time's a flat circle from True Detective. Like, ultimately, everybody ends up making the same arguments. And by the way, while I'm on this bit, when I was in college, Frank, was during the Bill Clinton impeachment. I went and watched the Bill Clinton impeachment trials. I remember reading, there was a great piece where every Republican was arguing the exact opposite of the perspective that they had when Richard Nixon was in office, right? And every Democrat was arguing the exact opposite of the perspective they had when Richard Nixon was in office, right? And what is so ridiculous about all of this is I think many people out there are just like, hey, believe what you believe, but at least be consistent in some way. And there's so few people that are actually consistent.
Yeah, and also, you mentioned politics. Let's also not forget, besides the fact that Mark Cuban is very provocative and he likes being the center of attention, there's always this feeling that he has political aspirations. The fact that he's doing it in a state like Texas, he knows that he's going to get a lot of attention. So I found that part of it fascinating. I think he always wants to somewhat be provocative, and I think certainly he started this whole conversation again about this. But it is interesting, the fact that the story came out just a few days after the Super Bowl, and we all know that the anthem at the Super Bowl is such a big deal that they have prop bets. at the Super
How
Bowl.
long it's going to
about
last.
How long
right.
the anthem. Exactly.
And look, you can sit back and say all controversy is good. Certainly people have thought at times this show was controversial. I don't think it's really hurt us. I think that's why we've grown as we have. But this is not a discussion that I think is in any way helpful to the NBA. I don't know about you, but I just don't think there's that many people out there who believe that the solution to the NBA's issues as it pertains to their sport is let's just eliminate. Because to me, all it does is reinforce, like, hey, you won't speak up to China, but you'll silence the national anthem. I mean, that's not a good optics for Adam Silver to have to defend.
Yeah, and let's think about the timetable here. So on Wednesday morning, really, last Tuesday night into Wednesday morning is kind of when this story broke. And by the afternoon on Wednesday, the league had already come out with a statement saying, now that we're about to allow fans into every NBA arena, small portion of fans, we will play the anthem. Every team will play it. And then you had Mark Cuban in the Dallas Mavericks and said, we will follow the NBA's lead. So you want to talk about a quick news cycle. It went from being they weren't going to play the anthem again into the NBA coming out. And like I said, on Wednesday, the phone calls that must have taken place between Adam Silver, other owners, the Board of Governors, Mark Cuban, it must have been pretty intense because I think, to your point, I think the NBA feels like, with everything that happened in the bubble, and a lot of the talk was about their relationship with China, and now he's dealing with this whole thing with the All-Star game in Atlanta. LeBron James, the most powerful player in the league, has already put the kibosh on. He said he's going to be there, but he made it clear on no uncertain terms he thinks it's a bad idea. The NBA has come out and said maybe we should be jumping the line to get the vaccine. So the NBA has a lot of stuff going on right now, and I think Adam Silver's point to Mark Cuban probably was, maybe there's a day for us to have this conversation. Let's not start this right now. I don't need this aggravation.
Let me ask you this. Let's shift away from the anthem controversy for a minute back to the Super Bowl, which you just mentioned. So I think inevitably for the NBA, every single conversation in the NBA, sadly, ultimately devolves to LeBron versus Michael Jordan, right? It's like the black hole of NBA. It sucks everything in.
It's my radio show every morning.
Yeah.
Leave me alone.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's funny. Like, I remember several years ago, one of my friends, Cole Kubelik, described LSU Alabama with the height of their rivalry. It was like any conversation that you had about college football eventually turned into Alabama LSU. It was the black hole. It sucked it in. And the same thing I think happens with LeBron and with the debate over Jordan. Are we in danger? So I talked about this earlier this week, and I'm curious if you've thought about it at all. Are we in danger of turning Patrick Mahomes against Tom Brady into the NFL's own version of Jordan versus LeBron? And the reason why I bring it up is I think it's a really kind of fascinating question. The result of Jordan versus LeBron has been that many people can't enjoy LeBron James in real time because it's all about where does he rank in the history of the NBA. And I'm like, well, his career's not over. Like, can we not forestall debates about who the greatest are until their careers are over? Because leading up to that game between Brady and Mahomes, I was already starting to get an inkling of a conversation out there where the entirety of what we're going to talk about in Patrick Mahomes' career is the shadow of Tom Brady hanging over everything.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, as good as Patrick Mahomes is, we're not even hardly going to be able to enjoy it because it's going to turn into Brady's the GOAT. No, Mahomes is the GOAT. And that's all people talk about and scream about all day long while Mahomes' career is going on.
Yeah, a couple of things. Watching how everything unfolded, I always wonder if Michael Jordan sits back and says, whatever the reasons were, I never should have walked away in the mid-'90s. And even in 99, if I had come back, we would have won the East. We would have played San Antonio. I could have won 7, maybe 8 championships. Now that he sees that Brady got to number 7. And the one thing about LeBron and Tom Brady, and what I really appreciate and like about both of them, is that at their advanced stage, they still love the competition. They're not just out there collecting a check. They want to win, and they set themselves up in positions where they win. And even Tom Brady winning in Tampa had a bit of an NBA feel to it. It did, and I have always liked Tom Brady. It has a mercenary feel, kind of the way that he set himself up. But again, he got 7, and I do think I think a lot more of that conversation was taking place before the game. The fact that now Tom Brady, his teams have beaten Patrick Mahomes twice, obviously with New England a couple of years ago when they knocked them out of the AFC Championship game in Kansas City, which is big to remember, and now in the Super Bowl in a game where I did not think – I understand that Patrick Mahomes was running for his life and he made some crazy throws, but can people stop with how great of a game the guy had? In a league where everyone scores touchdowns, they scored 9 points. I love the guy. I was shocked at how tough it was for him, and I give Todd Bowles and that defense, underrated defense, for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers a lot of credit. But he did not have a good game. And remember, after what happened in Green Bay, the big thing with Tom Brady, because everybody doesn't like Tom Brady, so we can't appreciate the fact that he's 43 and winning his 7th Super Bowl. We always have to knock him. After they beat Green Bay, well, they won in spite of him. He threw 3 interceptions. Well, hang on a second. One of them was a punt. All right, he did the same thing in the Super Bowl on 1 third down play. We just threw it downfield. He said, maybe we'll catch it, maybe they will, or it's incomplete. We punt the ball. And when he needed to drive his team in position for a field goal to make it a 7-point game or an 8-point game, that's what he did. When he needed to get first downs against Green Bay to end the game, that's exactly what he did. So what bothers me the most about what happened to Tom Brady, you're talking about all these comparisons. After he won the game, it became, is he the greatest of all time? And then everyone said, no, it's Serena Williams. It's Simone Biles. It's, LeBron James. The guy's 43. What we're watching is unprecedented. I'm just so surprised. And maybe people don't like Tom Brady for his politics. They hated the Patriots. They thought he cheated with the deflated balls. Whatever the reason is. I mean, come on, man. The guy has had an unbelievable career. And to still be this good at 43 and winning Super Bowls with an organization that was nowhere. They were never on the map. Yes, the one time they won a Super Bowl, they were. What have they been doing since then? Nothing. He put them not only back on the map, he got them having a championship parade on Wednesday.
It is pretty extraordinary to think about in general. Do you think we're in danger, or do you think football is such a different sport that we don't have to worry about going down the same rabbit hole, the same black hole of sports nothingness, I would say, where the argument ends up happening every day?
I don't think it will. It only seems to be an NBA thing. And especially, the NBA, the season starts, we always make a joke. Who's going to be the first one to say that so-and-so is having a good season and so-and-so is in the MVP conversation? And it always happens in the first week of the season. Somebody, he's having a great year. He'll be in the MVP conversation. And it started to happen a little bit in the NFL. If you remember, after the first couple of weeks of the season, there was this big push with Russell Wilson. He's been a great player. He's never won the MVP. This is his year. How about we let the season play out a little bit before we start to anoint guys and the season? I got in a lot of trouble with people in Slovenia and people in Dallas because last week I said, Luka Doncic, just because everyone decided before the season he should be an MVP candidate, he's not right now. His team stinks. I said Dominique Wilkins is the human highlight film. Luka is the human complaint department. All he does is complain, but because we in the media anointed him an MVP candidate before the season, no matter what happens, we're still putting him in the so-called conversation. And I think football started to get like that a little bit at the beginning of the season.
Good stuff as always. Do you feel, by the way, I know you've covered basketball for a long time, but do you feel at all like in general when football ends it's a little bit bittersweet, or are you glad to be able to move on to other things?
No, I really enjoy, especially the NFL playoffs. I love, especially this year with more teams being in it, I just love the whole Saturday and Sunday thing, especially in, I've been here in New York my whole life, so it's always, for the most part, pretty cold. There's nothing better than just staying in and watching those playoff games. Those couple of weekends are great. Then you get the championship Sunday. It's a lot of fun. And I've always liked the Super Bowl. To me, the Super Bowl, I think it's like the last holiday of the winter season. No offense to Valentine's Day. I hope my wife's not listening, but forget Valentine's Day. I like the Super Bowl. That's why I like the commercial with Cardi B, Wayne's World, and I like the one with Shaggy and Ashton Kutcher and his wife, because I wanted to laugh on the Super Bowl. I don't need to be reminded that we're in the middle of a pandemic and the world is miserable. I didn't need that for a Super Bowl commercial. I want to laugh and have fun. Is there anything wrong with that?
There is now. It used to be that everybody could laugh and have fun. Now everything is a modern morality play. Frank Isola, appreciate you as always. We'll talk to you hopefully next week.
All right, Clay. Take care.